The poor little girl went to the CEO's office and asked, "Where can I buy a father?" The CEO, in tears, made a decision that shocked everyone. The security footage would later show the girl entering through the service entrance at 9:47 a.m., slipping past a distracted cleaning crew. She rode the elevator to the 42nd floor as though she had done it before, though of course she had not. Children learn to navigate impossible systems when survival demands it. Dmitry Volkov had arrived at his office that morning as he did every morning, black Mercedes pulling into the underground garage at precisely 8:30, espresso from his private machine at 8:45, market reports on 3 monitors by 9. His corner office occupied the apex of the Volkov Tower, all glass and steel and imported Italian furniture, heated to precisely 22 degrees while November frost etched patterns on the windows outside. From here, Moscow spread like a blueprint. The Kremlin's red walls, the Stalin-era skyscrapers called the Seven Sisters, the construction cranes marking where old neighborhoods fell to make room for new capital. He had been reviewing a proposal for a residential complex, 30 floors, river views, parking for 500 vehicles, when his secretary Larissa's voice came through the intercom, uncharacteristically uncertain. Before she could finish her warning, the door opened. The girl stood in the threshold, impossibly small against the scale of the room. Her coat had been mended multiple times, the stitching visible even from across the desk. She held a plastic purse, the kind sold at street markets for 50 rubles, with both hands, her knuckles white. "Excuse me," she said, her voice carrying the formal politeness of Soviet-era kindergartens. "I need to know where I can buy a father." Larissa appeared behind her, mouth open, but Dmitry raised one hand. "Wait." The girl did not cry. Her face held the composed desperation of children who have learned that tears accomplish nothing. She stood perfectly still, waiting for an answer to her question, as though it were as reasonable as asking for directions. "What is your name?" Dmitry asked, his voice rougher than he intended. "Anya Mikhailovna Sokolova." She gave her full name, patronymic and surname, as children are taught, daughter of Mikhail, the father she sought to purchase. "Come here, Anya Mikhailovna." She approached his desk with careful steps, her felt boots leaving small wet prints on the polished floor. Up close, Dmitry could see the details poverty writes on children, the too short sleeves, the hungry thinness beneath the coat, the shadows under her eyes that spoke of inadequate sleep in cold apartments. "Why do you need to buy a father?" "Because mine left," she said simply. "Mama says he went to work in Siberia, but he never calls. Katya at school says her father takes her to the park. Sasha's father bought him new boots. I have money." She opened the plastic purse to show him. Wrinkled bills, a handful of coins. 200 rubles. Is that enough?" Something twisted in Dmitry's chest, a sensation he had not felt since the day his own father collapsed in the factory he managed, dead of a heart attack at 57, his body found between machines that continued running because stopping production cost money. Dmitry had been 23, already learning that in Russia, survival meant calcifying certain portions of your heart. He had spent 30 years perfecting that calcification. 2 marriages had ended, both women eventually leaving, claiming they had married a stranger who lived behind glass. His son from his first marriage was 28 now, working in London, their conversations reduced to stiff birthday phone calls. His daughter from his second marriage was 16, living with her mother in Spain. Her Instagram full of beaches and friends, Dmitry recognized only from their digital smiles. He had built an empire. He had forgotten to build a family. "Sit," he told Anya, gesturing to the leather chair across from his desk. She climbed into it, her feet dangling above the floor. Behind her, through the window, snow had begun to fall more heavily, the city softening into white silence. "Tell me about your mother." "She works at hospital number 67. Night shifts, sometimes day shifts. She comes home tired. We live on Proletarskaya Street, building 19. The heating doesn't always work. Sometimes I stay with Babushka Vera downstairs, but she is old and forgets things." Anya spoke without self-pity, reciting facts. "Mama says Papa will come back when he saves enough money, but it has been 2 years. I think maybe he got lost, or maybe he doesn't want to come back." "And you think you can buy a new one?" "In school, Dmitry Ivanovich," she used his patronymic, though he had not given it, meaning she had prepared for this meeting. "Teacher says you are very important, that you build buildings. I thought maybe you know where important things are sold." Dmitry looked at this child who had navigated a hostile city to ask him the one question that could not be answered with money, and he understood that he had reached a junction. He could send her away, gently, perhaps with some cash for her mother, a charitable gesture that would cost him nothing and change nothing, or he could do something that terrified him more than any business risk he had ever taken. "Anya Mikhailovna," he said slowly, "fathers cannot be bought. But perhaps—" He stopped, uncertain how to finish a sentence he had not known he would begin. She waited, her dark eyes fixed on his face with an intensity that made him feel exposed. "Perhaps I could be your friend. Would that help?" "I have friends at school," she said seriously. "I need a father." The bluntness struck him like a physical blow. He laughed, a short, shocked sound that surprised them both. "I understand, but I cannot replace your father. I can, however, help you and your mother. Would you like that? Will you come to my home?" The question hung in the air. In 30 years of business, Dmitry had never visited the neighborhoods where his workers lived, the districts his developments displaced. His Moscow consisted of restaurants where dinner cost more than monthly pensions, of private clubs behind unmarked doors, of the sanitized corridors of power. "Yes," he heard himself say, "I will come to your home." He went that evening, driving himself in a modest car, following the address she had written in careful Cyrillic on the back of his business card. Proletarskaya Street lay in the southeastern district, where Stalin-era apartment blocks stood like worn tombstones, their facades water-stained, their courtyards full of frozen mud and abandoned children's playground equipment. Rusted swings, cracked slides painted in the fading optimism of Soviet pastels. Building 19 had a broken entry lock. The stairwell smelled of cabbage, cigarettes, and the particular funk of old concrete, absorbing decades of human habitation. Graffiti covered the walls, some artistic, most obscene. The elevator was broken. Dmitry climbed 6 flights, his expensive shoes echoing on stairs where the rubber treads had worn through to concrete apartment 47. The door had been painted green once, now peeling to show the brown beneath. He knocked. Anya opened it, still wearing the same mended coat. Apparently it served as indoor clothing as well. Behind her, the apartment revealed itself in a single glance. One room serving as kitchen, living area, and bedroom, divided by a curtain, a fold-out couch, a small table, a hot plate, a television from the previous decade, windows with frost creeping inward despite the plastic sheeting taped over the frames. The temperature inside could not have been more than 15 degrees. "Mama is sleeping," Anya whispered. "She worked last night and this morning." Behind the curtain, a woman's form lay beneath heavy blankets. Within 6 months, Volkov Construction had established a network of after-school programs, subsidized housing units, and job training initiatives that became a model other companies reluctantly imitated. Irina worked with quiet ferocity, as though afraid the opportunity might evaporate. Dmitri found himself visiting their apartment in Kuzminki, ostensibly to discuss programs, actually to drink tea at their kitchen table while Anya did homework and Irina cooked pelmeni from scratch, filling the space with the smell of dough and meat and something he had not experienced in decades: domesticity. He began teaching Anya chess on Sunday afternoons. He attended her school performances, awkwardly, sitting among other parents, unsure of the protocols. He learned the names of her teachers, her friends. He fixed her bicycle when the chain broke. Small things, father things. His business associates noticed the change. "Dmitri Ivanovich has gone soft," they murmured at receptions. His ex-wives, hearing rumors, called one curious, one bitter. His son in London sent a confused email. His daughter in Spain posted a sarcastic comment on social media about rich men playing savior. He ignored them all. But 6 months after Anya had appeared in his office, a man showed up at the Kuzminki apartment. Mikhail Sokolov, Anya's biological father, had indeed been working in Siberia at an oil facility near Noyabirsk. He had sent no money, no letters, no phone calls. But now he had returned to Moscow, heard about his family's sudden fortune, and arrived to claim his place. He was 35, handsome in the way Russian men can be before vodka and hardship etch their damage, wearing new jeans and carrying an expression of injured entitlement. "My family," he said to Irina at the door. "My daughter. Who is this oligarch you have sold yourself to?" Dmitri was there, having stopped by after work, as had become his habit. He stood in the kitchen while Mikhail postured in the doorway, and he felt the old coldness returning, the boardroom instinct to destroy threats. "You abandoned them," Dmitri said quietly. "I was working, providing. You were absent. There is a difference. And you? What are you providing?" Mikhail's smile turned ugly. "I know your type. Rich men do not help poor families from kindness. What does she give you, eh? What does the girl—" Dmitri moved before thought, grabbing Mikhail by the collar, slamming him against the doorframe. "Finish that sentence," he hissed, "and I will make sure you never work in this city again." "Dmitri Ivanovich!" Irina's voice cut through the rage. "Stop!" He released Mikhail, his hands shaking. Anya stood behind her mother, eyes wide. "You should go," Irina told her ex-husband. "You have no place here anymore. I have legal rights, which you forfeited when you disappeared." Irina's voice was steel. "You want to fight for her now, after 2 years, because you smell money? Get out." Mikhail left, muttering threats about lawyers, about custody, about scandals. But they all knew he would not follow through. Men like him rarely did. They drifted toward the next opportunity, the next escape. When the door closed, Dmitri sat down heavily at the kitchen table. His hands were still trembling. Anya approached him cautiously. "Are you angry?" she asked. "Yes, but not at you. He is my father, my real father. Biology is not the same as fatherhood." She considered this with her characteristic seriousness. Then she did something that broke Dmitri completely. She climbed into his lap, wrapped her arms around his neck, and whispered, "Can I call you Papa anyway?" He held her while he cried. The first tears he had shed in 15 years, tears for his own father, for his absent children, for the decades he had spent building monuments to his own isolation. Irina stood at the counter, her back to them, her shoulders shaking with her own silent weeping. Dmitri could see her hand dangling over the couch's edge, work roughened, the nails cut short, a nurse's hands aged beyond their years. "I should not have come," Dmitri said quietly. "Let your mother rest." "But you promised." Anya's voice held a note of panic. "You said you would help, and I will. But not like this, not by waking her. He looked around the room, at the poverty rendered in peeling wallpaper and insufficient heating, at the small shelf of books, worn paperbacks, clearly read many times, at the carefully maintained tidiness that could not disguise the fundamental insufficiency of the space. "Tomorrow, bring your mother to my office at 11 o'clock. Can you do that? She works. Tell her it is important. Tell her." He paused, uncertain. "Tell her someone wants to help." They came the next day, both of them scrubbed and nervous, wearing their best clothes, which meant clothes without visible mending. Anya's mother, Irina Sergeyevna, was 32 but looked older, her face carrying the exhaustion of Russian women who work 2 jobs, raise children alone, and navigate bureaucracies designed to defeat them. She sat across from Dmitri with suspicious dignity, her arm around her daughter. "Anya Mikhailovna visited me yesterday," Dmitri began, uncertain how to explain. "She asked me an unusual question." Irina's face flushed. "I am sorry. She is a child. She does not understand." "She understands perfectly." Dmitri cut her off. "She understands that she needs a father, and that you need help. We do not need charity." The words came out hard, defensive, the pride of people who have survived by refusing to bend. Dmitri recognized it. His own mother had spoken with that same edge after his father died, refusing help from relatives, working as a school secretary until her hands ached, raising Dmitri alone with ferocious determination. "Not charity," Dmitri said carefully. "An opportunity. I need someone to manage the social programs for my company. We are required to provide community support. It is part of our contracts with the city schools, clinics, housing initiatives. I need someone who understands what these communities actually need, not what bureaucrats think they need, someone with direct experience." Irina stared at him. "I am a hospital orderly. I have no degree in—" "You have a degree in survival. That is more valuable." He named a salary that made her face go white. "Regular hours, health insurance, an office here in this building, and—" He paused. "A condition?" Her expression hardened. "Here it comes," her eyes said. "The price. You and Anya will move into one of our new apartments. A building in Kuzminki, 2 bedrooms, proper heating, maintained by our company's subsidized rent." "I cannot afford—" "The subsidy makes it affordable. It is part of your employment package." He was making this up as he went, improvising a solution to a problem he had never previously acknowledged. "You start Monday. Anya will register at the school in that district. A better school." Irina looked at her daughter, then back at Dmitri. Her eyes had filled with tears she refused to let fall. Why? It was the same question he had been asking himself for 24 hours. Why upend his carefully structured life for a child who had wandered into his office? Why feel anything at all? "Because your daughter asked where to buy a father," he said finally. "And I realized I have spent my life building towers while forgetting what they are supposed to shelter." The story might have ended there, a fairy tale of Russian capitalism redeemed by a child's innocence. But life in Moscow is rarely so simple. Irina proved to be extraordinary at her job, identifying gaps in services with the precision of someone who had lived those gaps. Outside, snow fell on Moscow, on the old city and the new, on the glass towers and the crumbling kommunalkas, on the lives being lived in all their messy, irreducible complexity. 3 years later, Dmitri Volkov would stand in a courtroom completing Anya's adoption, a process complicated by bureaucracy, by skeptical judges, by a society uncertain how to categorize a relationship that did not fit tidy boxes. Irina would be there, and his son from London, who had flown in to meet his new sister, and co-workers who had become friends, and Anya herself, now 10 years old and tall enough that her head reached Dmitri's chest when she hugged him. The judge would ask the standard question, "Do you understand the lifelong commitment you are undertaking?" And Dmitri would remember a November morning when a child too young to understand the rules of his world had appeared in his office, asking to buy what could never be sold, offering 200 rubles for what could only be earned through the daily, unglamorous work of showing up, of being present, of choosing again and again to love when it would be easier to remain frozen. "Yes," he would say, "I understand." But that morning was still 3 years away. For now, it was simply a Wednesday evening in Kuzminki, in an apartment that smelled of pelmeni and black tea, where a man who had spent his life building towers learned that the only construction that mattered was the slow, patient building of a family from broken pieces and stubborn hope. Anya fell asleep against his shoulder. Irina brought him tea. Outside, the city hummed with its 10 million private sorrows and small redemptions. "Thank you," Irina said quietly, "for answering her question." "I am still learning the answer," Dmitri replied. And that was true, and would remain true, because fatherhood, like all love, is not purchased but practiced, not a destination but a direction, not something acquired but something you become, one ordinary evening at a time.